Hello and welcome. Today I'm joined by Anil Gupta, who has led a very impressive career in TV and film. Anil, you've been writer and producer on iconic TV series such as Citizen Khan, The Big Asian Stand-Up, Goodness Gracious Me, French and Saunders, and of course The Office. Primarily you've led a career in writing for comedy, and productions that you have worked on have gone on to win or receive the Emmy or BAFTA nominations. So my first question to you is, as an award-winning writer and producer, what inspired you to take up a career in TV?
Well, truth is I didn't really know what I wanted to do when I came out of college, and I had watched a lot of television as a young lad, and yeah, so I mean, that was about the extent of my planning. Was, well, I've watched a lot of telly. I quite like watching telly. Maybe I should work in telly.
Amazing. What was your out of interest? What was your first job that led you into the career?
My first job in TV.
Yeah.
Well, I spent it. I mean, after college, I spent probably a year or two not really doing much. I mean, I applied for various different career jobs without much motivation, and then because having said I wanted to work in, or thought I wanted to work in television, I didn't really know anything about it. I didn't know anybody who worked in television. I didn't have any contacts, so it was quite hard. And you sort of applied for things that you'd see in the paper every now and again, but that wasn't really going anywhere. And eventually, I started to get some contacts, get some ideas, and I got a job as a runner. I started to get there was a sort of a guy who was sort of setting up a company that was hiring out runners to people who needed them, and I got a job. I suppose my first proper job, was as a runner on a corporate shoot for Toyota, I think it was, and yeah, that was the sort of first actual paid work I had that was anything to do with television or media in that sense. And that was only about 4 days, but that was a start. And then a couple more jobs like that. And then, but my first proper job in comedy was when I got a job as a runner on a TV show called Spitting Image, which in fact they're bringing back now, but was quite a big thing back in the day. And again, because I had a friend who worked on it, and he said, "Oh, we're doing the series, I need a runner," got me an interview. So I went and interviewed for it, and I mean, I was a terrible runner, but it was a good way of getting in and finding out what everybody did, what did the producer do, what the writers, what was that meant, what does all that stuff mean, and yeah, that gave me a bit more direction. Then I could think, okay, well, maybe I'd like to do that. The writing, that looks fun. Producing, I think I could do that. Directing, that wasn't for me. All those other areas. So that was a really great way of finding out what all the job titles meant and thinking where you might want to aim for.
Yeah, I like you say, once you got your foot in the door, then you could build on your contacts, and it sounds like following jobs came from sort of your contacts initially.
And I think that's it's working out because it's a big industry, and there are lots of different avenues you can go down, and you have to know what it is you think you want to do, and what you might be good at, what interests you. So I think that was a great way of finding out. For me it was producing and writing. That early on I thought, that's the thing, that's a good fit for me. I think that's what I might be able to do and I might enjoy. And for other people it would be areas of design or performing or whatever. So yeah, I think that would be one of my main pieces of advice, would be to be quite clear about which area you're trying to get to.
Yeah, and you've pretty much stuck to writing and producing since, actually, so obviously that was a good fit for you. My next question is, what has been the key to your success in your career in TV?
I don't know, really. I mean, I think I mean, sticking around is the main thing, I think. You know, there's lots of peaks and troughs in any, you know, I've been doing it for a long 20, 25 years more.
Yeah.
And during that time, there've been times when it's all been going great and you think, well, this is fantastic, I've cracked it. And then the next thing you know, you're sitting around and nobody wants to know you and you're wondering where it all went wrong. So you just kind of, if you really want to do it, and you have to really want to do it because there will be those moments, then you'll just stick at it. And I think, you know, as particularly when you start out, it's going to be generally for most people, it's, you know, you think, oh, this is hard. Is this, you know, I'm not getting anywhere here. I'm not getting paid. It's all a bit depressing. And yeah, there's, you know, I think I was once asked whether I thought about doing anything else. And I said, yeah, all the time. And they said, what, really? And I think there's a quote that is often, I think, attributed to Churchill, may not have been him, which is about democracy. And he was asked what he thought of democracy as a system of government. And he said, it's a terrible system of government until you consider all the alternatives.
Yeah.
And I sort of think that a bit about my job sometimes, which is, well, this is awful, but wait, what else would I do? Everything else would be worse. So yeah, there's a kind of element of that where you just sort of have to do it because you couldn't think of yourself doing anything else.
Yeah, I think that's good advice, just to stick at it. If you're really passionate and really want to be in that career, then keep going with it. This probably relates quite well actually to your peaks and troughs. What have been some of the challenges that you and the industry have faced during COVID?
Well, the challenges, I guess, are obvious in that you can't do anything. Nothing can get made. I did a play last 18 months ago or so for the RSC. We adapted a Molière play, which they did, and they were just remounting that in Birmingham, at the Birmingham Rep, and they had dress rehearsal the day before lockdown, and so that everything shut down. They'd had 4 weeks of intensive rehearsal. We'd been up there. We were all ready to go. Opening night was coming up, and literally then everything just got shut down and they all got sent home. And currently we've got no idea when the theatres will reopen. So, and we've just delivered another draft of a new play that had also been commissioned, and yeah, no idea when that's going to get put on. So, so that's quite difficult. And for television production, again, everything got shut down. Obviously, things are starting to come back on, but one of the main issues for TV production, especially, is insurance. The insurers won't provide insurance because obviously, if somebody gets ill, and they will have to shut down, and so that's a big issue and I think the government have just said that they're going to underwrite a lot of the insurance for TV and film production, which might mean things can start going again. But yeah, I mean, the same as everyone, really.
That's really interesting, and again, not something that you'd initially think about as being one of those barriers. What do you think the nature of film and media do you think that will change post-COVID?
I don't know. I think that, one of the big problems with this is nobody really knows today. Nobody knows what's going to happen. And I think that's that people are talking about, it'll all go back to normal. Other people are saying it'll never go back to normal. And then everyone else is sort of sitting in between somewhere saying, well, maybe we'll come in and out of lockdowns going forward. I honestly, I don't know. It's a slightly scary prospect to think that everything will have to change and we can't do things the way we used to. But I think there'll be a lot more in terms of actual physical production and making shows. I don't know that will change much or can change much, but maybe crews will become smaller. Maybe there'll be more technology. In terms of the sort of behind the scenes work, the development work, again, in common with everything else, I think one thing people have discovered is they don't really need to be in the office. I mean, I think there's a lot of people, who would you'd be expected to go into work every day, and people are thinking, well, actually, we're just carrying on the same when people working from home. So I think there will be a lot more of that.
Okay. And has anyone asked you to write like a show in a socially distanced manner, or is that not come about?
Nobody's asked me to, but we've had a couple of ideas where you think, well, that could work for, I mean, you know, everybody's sort of thinking, maybe maybe we won't be able to make shows like we used to, and maybe I should have an idea for one that could be made in conforming to social distancing and all of that. So I'm sure, in common with every other writer across the country, we're all thinking, hang on, what about if it's just one person on their own in a room? Yeah. So there's a couple of ideas we're knocking about with that.
Okay, that's great. My next question is about where you look for inspiration when beginning like that filmmaking process or that writing process, and where do you start when you sit down to write like the next TV series or the next play?
Well, I have a writing partner, and so usually we start with, I mean, we speak on Skype most days. He lives the other side of London, sort of in Ely, so we used to go into London every day and sit in an office, and now for years now we've just been on Skype, and we usually it's just, you kind of just chew the fat, you know, it's just did you see that? Have you know, moaning is the main thing. When you get to our age, it's mostly moaning for the first half an hour. And then it'll be talking about news and things, or something we just read or saw, and that sometimes sparks something, or you think, is there anything in this? Is this a thing? Or it might just be a book we've read, or an area that you're interested in, you know. Anybody who works from home, but particularly writers, will know that, you know, you very easy to disappear down the wormhole of the internet, and, you know, before you know it, you've spent 3 hours looking at things and reading things, and you know, things like Wikipedia, you can start, Wikipedia is a great tool for writers, you know, reference wise, and you start off with good intentions, thinking, I'll just read a little bit about this thing that I'm writing about, and the next thing you know, you've clicked and clicked and clicked and clicked, and you've ended up, you know, somewhere else completely. But that sometimes leads to inspiration, you know, and you'll think, oh, I didn't know about this, quite an interesting thing, and maybe there's some modern parallels here, or maybe there's something that resonates. And so having a writing partner is useful in that sense, that you can say, did you know about this? Is this interesting? And they can go, it's really not. Move on.
Yeah, that's good. And then what would your advice be to someone or a young person looking to take up a career in TV and film?
I suppose you have to be pretty sure you want to do it, because it's not particularly now, it's not a secure job. Most people in the industry are freelance, you know, they have no job security. You don't get sick pay, you don't get pensions, you don't get any of those things. So it wouldn't be the first thing I would be advising my kids to do, put it that way. But, you know, it can be an exciting and rewarding career. And so you really have to want to do it. And then I would say, try and be quite focused about what area you want to be in. You know, learn a bit about the industry, and you know, apart from what genres there are, you know, so you could be in news and current affairs, you could be a journalist, you could be sport, you could be comedy, drama, documentaries, you know, there's all these different areas. So find what interests you, what kind of things do you like to watch is a good start, you know, what things excite you the most, do you think, oh great, there's this amazing new documentary, I must watch it? Or do you think there's a comedy, you know, when I was growing up, anything with comedy in the title, you know, anything that listed itself as a comedy, I'd think, oh, I'll watch that, because I loved watching comedy. I didn't at the time think this is going to be a career. That's just what I liked. So subsequently I thought, maybe, I mean, when I first thought working television, I thought maybe I hadn't done anything at university that said comedy. I'd never been involved in any of those things. So I thought maybe I'd be a factual journalist or news or something like that. But it quickly became apparent that I wasn't really that interested in that stuff, or certainly not making it. and comedy was where where my heart was. So find out where your heart is and follow that.
That's good advice, very good advice. And you live in Winchester currently. So my next question is about whether, what advantages you would consider being situated in the south in terms of finding work opportunities?
Well, I don't know. I don't know if there are particular advantages in being in the south, but I think, it used to be that you basically just had to go to London.
Yeah.
Back in the day, it was in this industry, pretty much you had to be in London. I think that's not true now because of all the things we talked about, particularly, and now post-COVID, we're doing things like this. You can have meetings, you can talk, you can exchange information and scripts and what have you. So I think, you don't have that. There isn't so much of that need to be in London or to be inside the M25. I think that's much less so now. Which so the advantage of that is you can live somewhere nice and afford to buy a house.
Yeah, you're quite right. Being like, I'm in Yeovil currently, you're in Winchester, but through technology nowadays, I suppose you can work anywhere, and with writing as well. I suppose that you find.
Yeah, and I think that's just going to become more the case. That's going to increase the amount of remote working and remote information exchange is just going to increase now. So I think that's that's got to be a good thing, because again, the industry was going in an unhealthy way. I think where in my time in being involved in it, I was starting to think, well, wait, if I was starting out now, I don't think I wouldn't be able to afford to do this, because people were, now you find you work in productions and a lot of the people are posh, rich, white people whose parents can either live in London or afford to buy them a flat in London or pay for their rent. The industry was doing quite a lot of internships, basically come and work for free for 6 months or a year, and then maybe you get a job. Well, normal people can't really afford to do that. I certainly couldn't have done. So hopefully that will change now, and it'll open it up a bit more.
Yes, definitely a good point about that as well. So we'll move on now to the quick fire questions, and these have been entered to us by our audience base at Westlands. So I'll kick off with the first one, and that is, what are you working on at the moment? If you can tell us.
Well, I've just delivered a first draft of a new play that myself and Richard, my writer partner, have done, which is about a meeting that happened in 1931 in the East End of London between Gandhi, who was in London for a conference about the future of India, and Charlie Chaplin. It's true, they met. There's documentary footage of them. Nobody really knew what to talk about, so we made it up. So that's that. And then there's a couple of scripts. I've written a script set in the Raj, British India. There's a couple of other scripts that we're waiting to hear about. And then there's all these 4 or 5 new ideas that we're at various stages of development with. So I mean, again, in this business, you've got to you never know what's going to work. You never know what's going to take off or what's going to get made. So you've got to keep a lot of balls in the air.
Yeah. What has been your favourite production that you've worked on to date? Hard question.
Oh, that is hard. I don't know. I mean, they're all different, I think. I don't know. I mean, I've had a lot of been lucky. There's been a lot of shows that have been fun. Goodness gracious me, when we started out, it was brilliant fun, because we're all young and new and we didn't know what we were doing, and it was all very exciting. The Office, when we started doing that, again, we had no idea it was going to become what it became, but it was great. It was a real good fun show to work. It was really funny and good laugh, and we were all quite, you know, it was all basically stuck in that one place. A lot of actual physical production is quite tedious. You know, it's quite hard, quite long hours. You just, you know, you the long time waiting around for everybody's set up, and then you shoot for about 10 minutes, and then it's all right. Okay, cut, move, got to go somewhere else. So that can be quite boring. And but something like The Office, where we were just sat in an office and we just shot all day. So that was much more fun to be working on. There was an animated show I did called Bromwell High, which was on, well, it was on Channel 4. Channel 4 didn't like it, so they ended up not showing it all really. But making it was great, and cast were brilliant, and the scripts were great. So, and again, that just shows, you know, you never know.
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a massive hit, and then it wasn't. So, what do I know?
While we are on the topic of The Office, there's another question here, which was, what was it like working with Ricky Gervais? Did you get to work with him a lot on The Office, or was it more from a distance?
No, a lot. Yeah, we were working with him a lot. It was great. I mean, it was, you know, he's an amazing guy, an amazing character. You know, he can be quite difficult. I mean, he's quite spiky sometimes, and you have to, you know, there were a few after shooting. We'd have to go, me and him and Steve would have to go to the pub, and I'd have to go, look, I don't think you can do that. And he, you know, he's always up for an argument. So he'd be like, well, okay, why not? Yeah. So he's always having to challenge you. So it was tiring, but also great and exciting, because he was clearly very talented and, you know, really good at what he was doing. I remember there was a scene where, you know, because there was that issue about, is he you know, he's not an actor, not trained actor. So there are all these actors around him. Can he act? He can do the character, but how good an actor is he? Can he actually do the proper business of acting? And we had some scene where David has to beg for his job back when Patrick Ballady's character come in there, and Jennifer, his boss Jennifer, are coming and basically saying, well, you're going to get fired.
Yeah.
And it was the first scene of the day, and it was like, I was like, this is going to be interesting, because it's sort of, you know, in the script, he's required to get quite emotional, and is he going to be able to do that? Anyway, we started shooting, and he just instantly, like, you know, turned it on, and we were all like, oh my God, this is really good.
Oh, yeah.
And, yeah, that was great to be around that and see that happening.
Yeah, that's a really good story, actually. So another question here is, have you ever thought about hosting your own stand-up gig? You write a lot of comedy.
No, I haven't. Not something that, I mean, the idea of doing stand-up absolutely terrifies me. So, yeah, no.
That's fair enough. And then, what would be your favourite all-time TV series? Not that you've necessarily worked on, but watched.
Oh, gosh. I don't know, really. Hard to say. I mean, there'd be so many, probably, I mean, comedies, but there are loads that you watch. I mean, there's, you know, on the British ones, obviously, things like Fawlty Towers, or, you know, Blackadder, or Yes Minister, you know, things like that pop up and you think, oh, what's that? You know, great, I could always watch that. You know, even things like Dad's Army, I grew up watching that, and it comes on and you think, yay, I can easily spend half an hour watching this. Or there's, you know, the American shows. I mean, my kids, you know, watch Friends. You think, what? This is, you know, this show finished 10 years before you were born, but they all love it, and it's a great show. So any really good sitcom I will watch.
Okay, that's really interesting. And another question which was submitted, which is in the same sort of vein, is what type of comedy do you find funny? For example, like slapstick or one-liners?
All of them. I love anything. My kids will tell you, you know, farting is funny. I think it's hilarious. So they like, how old are you? Why? It's like, look, this is always funny. You have to understand. So yeah, you know, I love anything from from puerile, silly, slapstick, knockabout, toilet humour to, you know, clever, highbrow stuff, you know, all of it. If it's good, it's fun. If it's funny, it's funny.
Yeah, oh, it's very good to know, and it's been really good chatting to you as well. That is the end of the questions, you'll be pleased to hear. And for those of you at home, you can tune in on iPlayer or Netflix. I think The Office is still on Netflix for you to stream, and also Citizen Khan, The Big Asian Stand-Up, and Goodness Gracious Me are all on iPlayer to stream as well. All the links and references from today's interview will be in the comments and the descriptions below. So thank you again, Anil, and we'll chat to you again soon, hopefully, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks very much.